Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Christina and we're back for another Earth Magic study. If you're new here, I'm an intuitive reader. I offer collective readings, the Earth Magic cards every Sunday, so subscribe and follow along if you are so inclined and you feel like you resonate with this. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thanks for being here. Yeah, let's dive in. Holy crap, this last week felt like a freaking year. It feels like I have not done a reading in so long. How was your week? My week was good. My week was productive. Definitely feel like satisfaction at the end of this week, feeling like I'm satisfied with my living and what I did and how I expressed, and I'm looking forward and excited to this coming week and what more to direct and express, and yeah, just really enjoying all the engagement and movement and life in general. So our card for this week is, I've become very fond of just white mugs, clean, classic white mugs. Nothing fancy, just a clean white mug. Okay, really makes the coffee taste better, I swear. Okay. Just gotta fix my hair so I'm also satisfied with that. Okay, ready? Oh, I feel like we saw this one, but we didn't. Ho-ho! DNA. Karma. DNA. Look at that snake. Interesting. Tricky. So I feel like this is kind of a past, this is kind of a continuation from last week in terms of that whole like piercing the physical. What has come through this last week for me is that point of physical programming. So we're not only conditioned to exist a certain way based on like our mind in terms of like thoughts we have about ourselves and other people and self-definitions and like, you know, words we use to explain our reality. You know, it's like how the mind processes and interprets, and then how the mind chooses to respond in certain situations, how we respond to this type of person, how we respond in this type of circumstance. Like that's all conditioning, programming of the mind. Here we're talking about physical programming, which is like something you can see in the animals. Lions, and I mean every animal is programmed physically to exist the way it does, to have the behaviors it does, to survive. We are no different. We have physical programming from our ancestors, from the DNA, in the DNA passed on to us. Imagine how many lives lived that you currently have an expression of in your body through DNA. Every single person that has come before you in your genetic history, your lineage, has added to the DNA composition of you. And so you are just a physical program. You're a physical program. Like we're all programmed to exist in a very specific way. And so here, that's what this card brings up. Why? I don't know. What's the point? Karma, DNA. So from my perspective, you can change it. It's programmable. Like just because we are given, just because our DNA is the instructions for how our body expresses or how we physically express, like, or, you know, the mind, how the mind is programmed, just because we have certain conditioning or programming based on our culture, based on our family, based on our education, based on our economic situation, based on where we were born in the world, based on who our friends were, based on the music we listen to, based on all these things. We're not subject to that being the only way. Like we can change our programming. I am proof of that. You can change your programming. I've changed myself. You can do it. You can change your mind. You can change your programming. You can change your relationships to things. But now I feel like I'm in a bit of uncharted territories because we are into the physical programming. The DNA. So the point that I'm getting stumbled up on here is that point of, does the DNA provide instructions beyond like the physical structure, you know, like beyond like what color my eyes are going to be, what color my hair is going to be, if I'm going to have freckles, like this chin, jawline, like how much of the physical programming in terms of expression, in terms of the who I am, in terms of how I respond and react, how much of that is in the DNA. And I feel like I want to say all of it, because it's that same point of the animals exist in survival, we exist in survival. And so how we exist within our physical programming, how we respond to the world, how we respond to perceived conditions of threat or survival is stored in the physical. It's like we don't actually realize the extent to which we are not in control, to the extent in which we're just automatic. We're just automated. We're not even aware of the degree in which we are programmed. And yeah, so that's interesting. We don't even know the degree in which we are programmed. And karma plays a role here, because it's that point of like, when we act in an automated way, when we act automatically, we are living out like past behaviors that were passed on to us. And so we're like living out karma. I don't know. This card is confusing me. This point kind of confuses me. So I think actually let's read the book definition, because I don't really know. Nothing's coming up that's very clear. So let's see if the book can clarify for us, which I'm sure it can. So karma. Karma, a concept in many Eastern religions, is a Sanskrit word implying the greater universal laws of cause and effect, providing an implied code of ethics within the structure of the seemingly endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, which we experience throughout our lives. In many different versions, the mistaken notion about karma is that it's some kind of punishment, but it's far from that. In fact, in its purest form, it simply asserts that our conduct in this lifetime will determine our next incarnation. It has also come to mean how our behavior and actions in this lifetime create consequences is a slightly different version of the golden rule. We not only carry our soul's karma into this lifetime, but also embedded in the complex coding of our DNA is our genetic ancestral karma. The double helix structure of DNA contains codes that have been passed down from our parents and grandparents as well as our ancestors. Therefore, we have some of the same genetic information that comes from the DNA of very early human beings. In this card, we see two intertwined serpents with double helixes on either side. Variations of this archetypal image exist in many cultures, both traditional and contemporary. It's a graphic representation of the most ancient ancestry we can lay claim to, our DNA, the fundamental substance of life itself that provides substantial determination of our life path. Aspects of your soul entered your primitive physical self long before you had begun to take form. While the DNA that you inherited from your biological parents has a physical component, it also has a soul pattern that you came together in the creation of you that has a physical component. It also has a soul pattern that came together in the creation of you. You are predisposed to follow the karmic dictates of this patterning to some extent. Yet, as you evolve in your consciousness and expand the light of awareness, you can make choices that shift and modify the ancestral design. This is one of those times. You can feel the tug of your soul that is both ancient and karmic, yet you also recognize the persistent and loving communication from your higher self that contradicts the more familiar solutions before you. The choice is up to you, but know that every time you heed the guidance of your higher self, no matter what etheric or physical form it takes, human consciousness is elevated. In a sense, it becomes a choice between destiny and fate. What's the difference? I feel like destiny and fate are the same thing. So yeah, this book basically said the same thing. This definition basically said at the same point of like, we are like subject to certain conditioning, but that doesn't actually mean that you're completely powerless in terms of making a choice. You can change always. It's that point of like, the physical programming that I was talking about before is like, you automatically sit slouched, or you automatically like listen like this, or like if you notice, like maybe this is the point for this week. I think maybe this is the point, is to become more aware of your body and how it's actually existing. What is the state of your body? Are you shoulders down, kind of looking down, kind of encaved into yourself? Or are you up and open and like embracing and opening to the world? or, like, what are the like little mannerisms that you do with your mouth when you're listening, or like, talking, or like, do you find yourself needing to like nitpick or touch your hair, or like, it's like that point of the physical reveals so much in terms of where we are in our mind and our relationship to everything. Like every single movement is so specific. You know what I mean? So it's like that point of becoming aware of our body in every single moment and how it is moving, how it does it feel, how is it positioning itself, and realizing that in a moment we can change it. So let's say you're sitting and listening to someone and all of a sudden you feel defensive and you cross your arms and you just like kind of shut down and close off to them because you don't like what they're saying. What if in that moment you became aware of that and then deliberately unfolded your arms, opened your arms up, and maybe even sat closer as a point of making a decision? I'm going to listen to this person. So maybe that's just a very simplistic practice that can really support us with physical awareness, becoming aware of our physical, because from my perspective, it's so important. It's so important that we become physically aware of ourselves and our reality, because it is so easy to get lost in the mind. It is so easy to follow, these trains of thinking that can get us so fucking lost and confused and overwhelmed and participating in ideas that are completely actually irrelevant to our physical life, yet does have an influence on our physical bodies. When you're in your mind running off on this train and this train and this train, getting worked up, getting nervous, getting fearful, worrying about the future, worrying about tomorrow, worrying about this, that has a physiological effect on your body, on your immune system, on your respiratory system. Like, your body responds to what you're thinking about. And so that's why I think it's so important that we root and ground into our body and stopping the thoughts. Get out of your head, get back to your breathing, get to your body, and like become aware of the body, because that is going to support you so much, tremendously, to stay grounded in reality, so that you can then function and you can discern what is real and what isn't real, and what can I trust and what can't I trust, and who am I and how am I going to direct myself and how am I going to empower myself. So it's just that point of like, we are programs. We're programmable. We have been conditioned and programmed to exist in a very finite, limited design, where we're very much separated and divided and fearful of each other. And we can see the consequence of this is our whole world picture. Some are starving, some are dying, some are in war, not everyone is being cared for equally, when we know we have that in our hearts to do so. So why aren't we? Because we're all programmed to exist in a very small reality that is in our mind. And we're not in this one reality in which we all exist, which is the physical. So it's like acknowledging the fact that we're programming ourselves every single day by what we listen to, who we interact with, what we allow to go on in our minds, and then also realizing that even on a very physical level, we're programs also. But within all of that, realizing we've been conditioned to exist the way that we do in automation, within that, there is still an awareness of me here. There can be an awareness of, I'm aware of the fact that I'm thinking, so surely I'm not just my thoughts. And I'm aware of myself folding my arms in this moment because I'm having a reaction. But I'm aware of that, so surely I'm not just that movement. So surely I can make a directive choice to change physically. See what happens. So this is the practical application for this week. Test it out, try it out. If you notice yourself not aware of your body and you notice yourself in a funny position, see what happens, and maybe observe what is your experience, what are you thinking about, where are you in that moment, and see what happens if you change your physical body. How does your experience change? How do you experience yourself differently? How do you experience those around you differently? And just kind of test and play with this point and like getting practice in becoming more physically aware of the body, because I really feel like it's crucial for us. Like, this is what we need to establish, is that physical connection to our bodies, to me here, to my breath, to my reality. Just really ground and root in here. And realize the power that we have to actually change this programming. We're not victims of it. We're not slaves to it. We can actually redirect it and get out of the mind and into reality and to start implementing solutions that support everyone equally. So thanks for walking with Breathe. See you next week.